Yep. Hey, Pete, that is the word from the studio. I am getting word. We are live. Pete, I want to welcome you and everyone this evening for a special edition of Friday Night Show. We are coming at you on a Friday Night Live edition of the Rad Show. Couple of RC addicted dads sharing our RC adventure with you. Again, thank you for tuning in on a Friday night. This is an exciting Friday night. We have a great guest. We will get to that in a second. But if you stumbled across us here on YouTube, like I said, this is the Rad RC Show. Like I say every week, if you're asking yourself what RC is, that's when I tell you to scroll on. This show is not for you. We are a bunch of radio control RC addicted dads out here doing our thing, having a good time. My name is Mike, aka Munster Rc, here with my good friend and co-host Peter. Take it away, sir.
Hey, Mike, good to see you, man. Yeah, excited about our guest. It's good to be back. I know it's a different day, but you know, this guest that does some great stuff, man. I'm excited to hear more about him. I have one of his products and follow his work. And like always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, for making the Rad Show happen. Carryallrc, Treal Hobby, CowRc, Crazy Crawler Foams, Rebel RC, Powerhobby, 2.4 Designs, Crawler Cult RC, RC Misfits, Scale Rack, KNK Hradware, Adventure RC, Wesmade, RC Prorack, FMS, Race Place Hobbies, and Remote Control Hobbies Orlando. So thank you to all our sponsors. Without the sponsors and the collaboration during the week, we wouldn't have inspiration for the show. So thank you. So Mike, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Pete, let me first give you a shout out on your choice of clothing attire this evening. Good choice.
Nice.
I don't know how this happened, but
It wasn't planned.
we do not coordinate, and it's happened more than once, but neither of us were changing it. So big shout out to our friend Mark over at Crawler Cult, providing the gear, keeping the swag fresh. When you want RC gear, RC t-shirts with a bit of pizzazz, a little bit of edge, he is making us look cool. Crawler Cult, go check him out over on Instagram and Facebook. He has all your RC gear that you need. Yeah, Pete, and the other thing I will address right now is if the voice gets a little froggy and I get a little worn out, and if I maybe step back and let you talk a little bit more tonight, I did test positive. 2.5 years, 2.5 years with the pandemic. And I dodged every bullet up until this week, and I am officially COVID positive. My son got it first, then my wife got it, and then Wednesday it hit me like a ton of bricks. So other than that, Pete, a lot's happened in the last 2 weeks. We've been missing each other. At some point, we need to step back. I'd love to go over the fairway crawl with you a little bit, a follow up on that. We know trucks have been dropping, a lot of cool stuff getting ready to happen here with the new SCX6 Honcho, Boom Racing, Traxxas. I mean, the straight axle Vanquish, Phoenix. Like, there's been so many topics and things have been happening. It's been an exciting month for sure.
Yeah, and even FMS with the 6x6,
Right.
I mean, it's like every day you go online, there's a new drop, and I got my eye on that SCX6. But yeah, we'll get into that. I mean, I think you're right. There's just been a lot going on in the hobby, a lot of trucks being dropped. I mean, when I saw the FMS the other day, just added to the list. I mean, there's a lot of options out there now for all different types of drivers and platforms, and yeah, we got a lot to discuss.
Absolutely.
Now we got in the chat real quick. We got Tim R in Mexico watching us. So
fantastic.
Timmy's in Mexico. Size Matters is in here. What's up? He's
watching
from the He's watching from the hospital. Like we got people all over the world here.
Wow. I have a great picture from the fairway crawl. I was just getting ready to post it on Facebook right before we came on here tonight. I'm going to do it later. Big shout out to the guys from Size Matters for coming on the Rad Show live from the fairway crawl. We got some really great content with those guys, John and Craig, some of the most coolest guys I've ever met. You know, Pete, you've hung with them, wheeled with them, great guys. Got a great photo of the three of us sitting at the bar. You know, they got their drinks and I got a big ass root beer float right in front of me. It's just a great photo. Those guys are something else. But a follow-up from last Sunday night, Pete. I know we both got hemmed up on Saturday. We couldn't do the show. So I did a spontaneous little show, a Facebook Live with our good friend Robert over at the Scale Rat. Turned out to be an epic show. We got to start talking about the bumper dumper, all of the things that he's put up on Colts 3D. He's just blowing up like the Rat does. I mean, he's keeping busy. He's working on things. It's an exciting time. But he actually threw, I have a note here somewhere. I actually wrote it down. I took notes during the show as we were talking. And he's like, dude, you need to bring Headhunter on. Mark would make an excellent guest for the Rad Show. And I was like, son of a gun. You're 100% right, Robert. I'm like, I'm writing it down right now. And then first thing Monday, Robert's putting Mark and I right back in touch. We picked up right where we left off. And of course, Mark was like, both hands in the air. I'm in. Like, sign me up. I'm in. And it worked out perfectly that Fridays were his night. Fridays, he's like, Saturdays are a little rough. Fridays work. And I'm like, well, actually, Pete and I are ready to do a show this Friday. And it just worked out perfect. So yeah, Pete, you know just as much as I do about Mark over at Headhunter. I know you got a couple of things that we can browse around and take a look at his Etsy site, maybe his Facebook page. But go ahead and bring Mark on, Pete, and then we can let him do his introduction. And hopefully, I know he was going to bring a discount code with anybody tuning in tonight, and hopefully gives us a look behind the scenes and tell us where he gets some of the inspiration for this crazy talent that he has. Here he is. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend, and thank you guys for having me on. It is truly a humbling pleasure by far.
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just good old-fashioned iPhone.
No, sounds mint.
Okay, cool. And yeah, anyway, I'm Mark Mooney, aka Headhunter. And I forgot about the promo code, but I will make one that says specifically Rad Show. And because of the delay, and because everybody knows that when I'm late on something, I try to overdo it. So let's do a 30% discount, but I'll make that tonight.
Yep.
And so 30% off of anything you order. And because I'm not about trying to gouge anybody. I mean, in nowadays with like the economy and all, everybody needs to save money, and I'm just trying to help out my fellow dads, my fellow bike people. As we talked about, I almost wore my red tonight because I had a Rad shirt. I was like, yes, absolutely. And I'm just animated in person as I am on the phone. So if I go too fast, just let me know.
No, you're perfect. And you hit right on a generation that we speak to. We're in this late 40, early 50 crowd, and we all get the old retro 80s BMX. We get those little innuendos, and you get the vibe. And like you said, animated, it's perfect.
Yeah,
very talented. So you can sculpt, you can draw, and I guess when I want to find out where you get the inspiration for some of these crazy heads that you come up with. It, some of the inspiration comes from real people in the RC hobby. Ashley Wheelwright, Brian Almeida, Desmond. Well, we can't say Desmond yet, but Desmond is definitely coming.
I owe him big time, and I'm gonna get one done for him. I feel really bad. Like, what did we figure, 6 or 7 years?
I went back on your Instagram and went looking, and I saw one of the early USTE photos with Des holding it, and it's going back like 6 years.
Yeah, so he's well overdue. And like we discussed, any of those overdue people that had pitched ideas to me, which I absolutely love, there's not going to be any sculpting charge. It's just a matter of me getting around to doing it right at this point. And I got to tell you what, there's so much inspiration and obviously so much interest in what I do that I think I'm going to start banging out a bunch of these heads, no pun intended, I'm going to get it done. So people can start having, the Desmonds. They can, like, people are wanting like everything from, rat heads to, like, the old rat fink. Who doesn't love a rat fink? And actually I am working on some bodies right now. But when you were mentioning Ashley, I actually have a 1/24th.
Wow.
Yeah. The only problem is, though, like, I talked to him because he and I talk quite a bit, and he's such a good guy. Because I was showing him on my little actually, this was a CX10, I believe.
Okay.
I was like, dude, the beard has got to be cut off. He's like, not an issue. I can do that. And I also have a chick head. And
is that
124.
Is that RC girl, or is it anyone famous?
No. That's just it. Like, a lot of the that I come up for. Well, actually, I even have my friends. I'm like, man, pitch an idea. What do you think? Like, Gnarly Charlie, Undead Ed. I like things that are catchy. Obviously maybe a little too risque for some. I think I told you, I was kicked off of one website for one name, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But anyway, yeah, I don't know, Ashley, Brian Alameda. Let's see, he loves Scale King, so I was like, so be it. You'll be Scale King, and I don't care, man. And even if you want one, if you come up with like something like Rad Mike, whatever, that'll be it. I'm super,
I'm looking here at Radical Rick, and I'm seeing inspiration in that helmet. Like, I don't know if you would get in trouble for the copyright or something on that, but a nod back to Radical Rick would be cool.
Well, absolutely, dude. And the one thing about the Radical Rick, Bob Haro originally drew that, and he was one of my, I didn't even realize he was drawing those. He's such an inspiration. I mean, back to the BMX.
Like Haro BMX, like Bob Haro.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Insanely talented. Yeah. The guy is, he is, and sorry if you're hearing dinging on my phone.
You're good.
It's the kids in soccer. That's the one thing that kind of ties me up most of the time right now, like even my weekends. That's why Saturday was kind of a day.
How old are your kids?
Let's see. My kids are you still there?
Yep.
Okay. My kids are 9 and 11. I can't believe I had to think about that, but I did. Let's see. Yeah, my daughter, like I say, like I always tell people, my son's 9 going on 15. My daughter's 11 going on 21. And they're far more mature than we were at the equivalent age. And I think it also has a lot to do with their access to the information via internet. They're just so bright and very cynical and sarcastic. And I absolutely, you know what I mean?
Well, they're exposed to that TikTok humor and Instagram and all of that. Like you said, all the social media, they become numb to all that humor now. And they're exposed to it all the time. So yeah, I get it. My son, 15, very, very sharp. He will knock you down with his humor.
Yeah, they're so savvy, and so they make me laugh all the time, and they get so much innuendo that you'd never assume that a kid that young can understand. But to give a little bit of info about myself, I've basically been a stay-at-home dad, which has kind of allowed me a great deal of time to kind of work on my craft, so to speak. Needless to say, I probably corrupted the children with my influence. And I think, like most dads who are around their kids a fair amount, we talk to them probably more like an adult to a kid, because we don't really know any other way, you know? So yeah, that probably helped them advance a little bit more quickly in their conversation than maybe a traditional route, but I'm thankful for it. And they're awesome. They're truly, the kids and my wife, they're basically my best helpers and everything for me, you know.
It's great that you can utilize them. It's great that they have interest and you can keep them involved. Family first, always. And
Yep.
I'm glad that you appreciate it so much, and you definitely seem to cherish it and recognize that it goes fast. Before you know it, you're going to be looking back and saying, oh man, where'd the time go?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I can tell you, like, I mean, you know, they're even tied into the business. I actually pay them $10 an hour. Yeah, too. I know I'm probably gonna get in trouble for that. But
Yeah,
I
right.
an hour to you know, to help me sand the heads, you know, if I've got a big order, I'm like, can you guys help me do this? And then we'll get it done and we'll go. But yeah, matter of fact, I got my daughter right now. What do you need, honey?
My phone won't let me call mom. Mom just called me.
Okay, can you text her?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll text mom. Okay, anyway, there yeah. So yeah, it's always you know, trying to integrate everything, you know, mom trying to get a hold of the kids, or mom trying to get a hold of me. And I think she forgot about my meeting tonight, which she assumed, I think we both assumed it was going to be like 8 o'clock our time. But yeah, no big deal. We'll get it worked out. It's all good. But
awesome.
yeah, you know, yeah, the kids, yeah, they help me a lot, you know. And it's funny because each one of them has their own level of quality control. Even though my son is younger, I know my daughter will probably hate me if she hears this later in the video, but he is far more particular. I'm like, hey, no, it's, you know, there's still, you know, you know, he'll sand and sand till his little heart's content. But like I said, hey man, you know, I'll pay you $10 an hour for real. You know, just ride it out with me, man. It's a very important order. We got to get these out.
That's fantastic, and hopefully it could continue as he gets older, and maybe you'll always have a place for him. I know when I started my business, that was, you know, kind of that holy grail was maybe I could start a business that my son could work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to turn into that, but it would be a wish of mine. I'd rather have my son working for me instead of some pinhead out there that just would walk all over him. I mean, we know the world will chew you up and spit you out if you don't have your border up. But it's great that you can keep the kids involved and have a little father and kid time together with them. Now, at the end of the day, it's not all. RC is kind of actually a small part of what you're focusing on here. I mean,
Yep.
Belt buckles, for example, and
Yep.
You're just a talented artist. We know from the RC side, you have this great one-liner. I forget how it goes about you don't want ghost riders. The one pet peeve is getting a super scale truck like on a trail, and you can see the thing wheeling. It's clearly not posed, sitting still, but nobody's behind the wheel. Like it was this mission to get a driver behind every wheel. No more ghost riders. But you have a background in RC that goes back, you know, to Maya days and things like that. But do you want to touch on anything outside of the RC hobby that you do? I know I stepped on belt buckles, but is there other things, tattoos or anything?
You know, artistically, yeah, obviously, probably a lot of people don't know that about me, but yeah, I professionally for a foundry, and I do predominantly belt buckles. And I also make molds for them in-house, but for as far as the artistic side, yeah, it's sculpting of the belt buckles. But I do have like my own private line of like Western fine art that I'm trying to develop right now. and it's more Western, I guess you might say.
Are these up on the Etsy site that Peter could click over to and scroll through yet? Or
Well, the Western stuff, no.
okay.
I actually have like 4 different companies between t-shirts and then my graphic design company and then the Western art company as well. I'm overly diversified. Too many irons in the fire, to be totally honest. And it's just a matter of trying to allocate time, adequate amount of time for each one, but it's just a matter of, I'll chase a buck here and there type of thing. And that's probably probably a bad thing at times. But anyway, I really enjoyed doing a great deal of things art related. I even worked on a graphic novel at one time with a friend of mine, which is still in the works as well.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. I've done large scale oil paintings, which were just kind of a reflex or a response to sculpting small for so long. My wife actually had come home and she said, "What are you doing?" And I had a house painting brush just beating the crap out of a huge canvas, because I was like, I'm so tired of working small. I've got to do something big. And I don't know, it's just a compulsion. I love to create stuff, and it doesn't matter what it is. The only thing that I have I don't know, like, I wouldn't say it's a love hate. I have a tremendous respect for it, but I have no aptitude for it, is pottery. Yeah, I just, I love seeing an amazing made pot, but it is the only thing that I seem to struggle trying to do. Drawing, painting, pen and ink, watercolor, I seem to adapt to them some degree. I'm not a master at any of them, but I can fake it to a fair level. But pottery, that owns me 100%. It says not today,
Yeah. And you're talking like a pottery wheel, okay.
Yeah, you give me a glob of clay and tell me to sculpt a figure, I can do it. But to make it, I don't know, it's just one of those things. Like, since I seem to have a knack for certain things, I assumed I would be able to do that. No, pottery is that's my Achilles heel, because it's just like, no, you cannot do it. And but luckily I have friends that are pottery gurus, so if I ever need a nice teapot or something, I can always lean on them. You know what I mean? I don't know, it's a weird compulsion, no matter what it is, to desire to create things. I've told people that even if I had a plate of steak and mashed potatoes or whatever, I would probably try to sculpt the mashed potatoes. For real. Yeah.
What was that? Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Remember we sculpting the he's sculpting that mountain. Yes.
Yep. See, and that's our generation. And that's it's all people like generally our age. We still have a lot of those reference points,
don't get me started on UFOs. We'll turn this into a 2-hour conversation.
I know. I pinned down the guy trying to sell me windows at my house the other day when we were talking about aliens. And Bigfoot got in there.
Sign me up. I'm in on that convo anytime.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm the exact same way, buddy. I mean, whenever you want to talk about it, I am all there. But I really appreciate you guys, posting my website on
absolutely.
I really do.
I've been nudging Mark to take the leap into the SCX6 platform to start scaling up some of these heads. And then it made me go back through his Instagram and find the ones with the cowboy hat and see which one's going to look best on that size platform. I love to see that you've taken the SCX24 and tried to get ahead for that also. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So can you just help me understand what these things are? When you say you're a sculptor, you're not sculpting each one of these individually. You must make a master mold, and then kind of, are they resin printed after that? Like, what is the process here? What is
Well, initially, I basically had a blank helmet with a recessed face, and then I was able to just lay clay on the surface of it. I don't have any directly in front of me actually at the moment, because I've had to bag everything up, because as my wife could tell you, I have in her words, too much shit. So, and I don't sorry, monetize that. Sorry. But yeah, she's like, dude, it's like you're like a hoarder. I'm like, I'm an artist. I can't help it. But anyway, you know,
I'm an artist, Mom.
I'm so misunderstood. Yeah, I know. I need to paint my fingernails black and yeah, get like all these like things. But anyway, no, you know what I was doing initially, I had like one head and I really liked it. And I cast it. And then what I was doing is I literally just took a Dremel and I took the face off of it, inside the helmet. And so it gave me a flat base to build out from. Or like the skull driver, that's a good one to work from because I already have the foundation of the anatomy. And then you can just start laying on tissue on there. And I don't do anything glorious for the eyes. I'll use everything from airsoft pellets to, I'll go hit up Hobby Lobby or Michael's and find like pearls that seem roughly the right, diameter for an eye and shove that in there and start laying in eyelids and stuff. But I have transitioned into doing digital so that I can have those same heads and brought into the digital world. And then I can sculpt from there and make iterations a lot faster. And then if I have to, that's one thing. Like with a lot of, I wish I had one directly in front of me, but I don't. Actually, here, hold on 2 seconds. This guy right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it was the old, I don't even remember what it was called. Maybe that was Gnarly Charlie. I've got so many names for all these things. I think, but originally I put spikes on it. Alameda has one of these and he painted it and it looked amazing. It was just fantastic. But anyway, there was this guy I was talking to years ago. I think he's called the Engineerable guy. And he had this resin that was water-based and it would shrink based on the proportion of water you would put in it. So I actually cast the heads with that kind of hydrophobic or water responsive, resin. I don't know the right term, but anyway, it would shrink and then I would try to catch it at the right time. Like, that's 1/10 scale, like not so much the Wild Willie bobblehead, and then obviously the 3D printing came along and 3D software. So, and since I also have a background in graphic design, transitioning to 3D software wasn't a huge leap. I'm still not like super, whiz at it. But once I started playing around with it, I was like, oh, this is nice. I can just scale things down and take my designs from there. But also I happen to live in a very good place for what I do. It's kind of a mecca for sculpting in general. I have access to all the resources any sculptor could possibly need, whether it's scaling, resizing. If somebody ever wanted a monument of one of these drivers, I could do it. So
wow. Right.
But one other thing I was going to say, I actually grew up really close to Mount Rushmore. So sculpture has basically always been part of my life anyway. And as a kid, I would go sneak into my stepdad's toolbox and I would grab, one of his menagerie of flat blade screwdrivers. And I would take a hammer and then we had sandstone that was pretty prevalent around where I grew up. So I would go and chisel hands.
Wow.
In the stones. Yeah. Because I was always fascinated with like Michelangelo, however you want to pronounce that, Donatello, Da Vinci. And now I kind of joke, and this ties back into the alien thing, because my mom found out about these hands that I was carving into the stones and, around her property, because she lives out. Yeah. She lives in the country. I was like, I'll be able to find him. But I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great, if you had like some anthropologist, stumble across it, like, oh, this was some ancient civilization. I'm like, no, it's not some ancient civilization. It's just some kid who likes riding his bike and got bored with, stepdad's screwdriver.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, it's a compulsion. I absolutely love doing it. I can't help it. It's just part of, maybe I'm like, my cousin calls me and says, you're an idiot savant. So maybe that's my idiot savant.
It's true. There is that side of an artist. You're going to be a little quirky and you're just going to own it. That's what makes you unique. And you have a gift. And I'm literally blown away that you were able to learn this skill, or you, I'm sure a lot of it is kind of, you're born with it. I think a lot of it has to be internal to some degree. You can try and teach some people techniques, but you just have to have the gift. But for you to be able to take something with your hands and carve it, but then also learn it in CAD and do the same thing on a computer, you are talented across the board. And when you talk about irons in the fire, dude, it's a whole other level with you. You're diversified in all these different directions. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I mean, I don't know. I think the other thing too, when it comes to being an artist, if you're not really established yet and really part of the bigger, like you have clientele, you have collectors, and, I basically make the majority of my money as a commercial artist, sculpting other people's ideas through the foundry. But you've always got to have some level of side hustle, about you. And I'm so inspired by so many things, even though I grew up in a place that was, really dominated by Western art. I mean, I'm talking truly Western art. We're talking cowboys, Indians, that kind of thing. The whole urban thing always fascinated me. I mean, much to my mom's chagrin. I mean, I'd take spray paint and do my version of graffiti on one of her tin sheds, and so out of place in the middle of where I grew up, but it was, again, like the movies that were going on at the time. You're talking like Breakin', Beat Street, all of those movies. And I just was so drawn to that, no pun intended. And, I was like, yeah, even fashion. I love fashion. I love seeing all the different concepts they come up with. Automotive design. I would love to do automotive design just for a week, just to spend the time doing it. But for as far as the talent side of it, I think, my talent is persistence. I think the one thing I really like about art is I don't think I'm very good at it. So, and I'm driven to be eventually good. Hopefully I'm good before I go blind or my hands don't function. But I just really have this, strong desire to become better at it. There's so many people I admire, and that's what I aim for. And I think that's what gives me the reason and drive to keep doing it all the time. But I also think a lot of people have a lot of the same abilities. They just never harness them. Like I'm always telling my kids all the time, most people give up early when we're kids. And that's what, stops them from ever progressing to becoming anything further. For whatever reason, I just never wanted to give up. And but I think it's a good way to kind of approach life in general. If there's something that you feel, just something inside you feels like you might have the capacity to do it, keep doing it until you get there. It's that hitting those new plateaus and finally, it just builds something within you that you realize, I have this skill. Why don't I apply that same drive, passion, persistence to something else? I even picked up the Rubik's Cube like 4 years ago, because as a kid, I know, as we all know, I would peel the stickers off and then reassemble.
Thank you. I hope you were going there with this, because I'm taking the stickers off every time.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I'll tell you what, there's like, I learned this really basic four algorithm thing. Oh, it's so great. And I got my kids doing it. I thought it'll buy me some time. I don't have to just be so hyper involved trying to keep them entertained. So I gave them the Rubik's Cube, and in no time at all, my daughter, I think she was doing, I think she was 10, and she was doing like a sub minute 3x3 cube.
No way.
Yeah. And then I was proud, but at the same time, I'm like, what am I going to teach them now? What new thing do I have to learn now? But I play the guitar and the piano, and so I'm going to try to maybe see if they can pick up some of that as well. And I don't know, we're kind of a little artsy fartsy family, or at least I am. But where I grew up, and also the time, we didn't have the internet, as you well know.
Yeah.
I did have my trusty Nintendo, which my mom absolutely couldn't stand, because my brother and I wore the carpet out where we sat in front of the TV and played Mario Brothers. But for the most part, I was just trying to find ways to entertain myself. And I can tell you the whole art thing, where it really started, and this is the honest to God truth. I was 6 years old, and my mom said, why don't you draw this soccer ball? And I could not draw that soccer ball to save my life. Couldn't figure it out. Finally, I took construction paper or something. And I really studied it and I cut it down, and it finally dawned on me that the soccer ball was composed of 2 different polygons. And that's why I couldn't draw it, because I never recognized that. And it wasn't until I actually built a physical model of it. I was like, oh, but this is about the same time as Star Wars. So I would make little Star Wars planes and hang them from my ceiling with fishing line.
Fishing line. Yes.
Yeah. And, back when Hot Wheels and Mattel were a big deal, and, we were kids, and it was just a different time. We had to use our brains in a different way. And I'm not saying the younger generations aren't using their brains. I think they're advancing so much faster than we are.
But they're using them in a different way. It's completely different. We had a lot more imagination and make believe, and the way we played was different than they are today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like, it's funny you say that. My cousin and I were just talking about like when Rambo first came out, we had mom or dad's jigsaw, and we were trying to cut little guns out of wood, and we'd spray paint them our version of camouflage. And like my cousin, he was like, hey man, have you seen the cosplay stuff that people are doing today? It's incredible. If we had that kind of knowledge or access to those materials, the hot glue guns, and they're putting LEDs, and they're making the coolest stuff ever. And I don't know. I get truly inspired by a lot of the younger generations, and I'm not saying I'm like ancient by any means. I'm close to 50, but watching these younger cats do their thing, I'm like, yeah, and people are like, well, why do you get so excited? I'm like, that's what I would have done. That's what I still want to do.
As an artist, I wonder if you can respect these guys that I'm seeing on Instagram that are building these life-size, full-size Transformer costumes. Have you seen this yet? Like, he can wear the whole thing, and he looks like Optimus Prime, or I'm sorry, Soundwave. And he's got the full costume with the cassette that pops out. It's out of control.
Oh yeah, no, that stuff is just inspiring to no end, and the kids and I, we love watching those things. And of course they're intellectually advanced enough that they like to dissect the movie and all the things, all the flaws in it, but I'm like, just take it for face value. Because like our generation, I can remember Jurassic Park being such a huge leap, I'm like, wow, because we had seen stop animation movies, but to see all of a sudden, there's this huge jump in CGI. And it is. I have a tremendous amount of respect for all the young kids today and all the young people that are artistically inclined. Like, I'm always trying to tell my kids, I said, you guys have a unique opportunity. Whereas like with our generation, we'd have to go to the library or go somewhere, find magazines, find literature, find, encyclopedias or the old microfiche, and surf for the information that way versus this way. They don't have to wait, and they can get it as fast as they want. And they can teach themselves, if they have the desire, to learn as fast as they want to, and just accelerate way beyond anything we've ever done. I think they could be so multifaceted, that would exceed our generations 10 times or 100 times over.
Yeah.
You are you're 100% correct. Hey, Mark, your last name. What can you tell me? Where are you from? You have this interest in Indian and Western art. Your last name is unique. Are you Native American? What is the nationality?
Oh yeah, no, that's an interesting topic actually. My last name is I guess Spanish, according to what my father has told me, and based on my genetics, I think maybe we talked about it or maybe we didn't. My dad is Native American and Mexican, and my mom is basically German, Slavic type of thing. So, and I always tell people that, and this is kind of the truth, my dad looks like the old version, actually the current version of Erik Estrada off of Chips. I know you remember Chips.
I can see it. Yep.
And then my mom, no joke, in every facet, looks like Dolly Parton, or used to look like Dolly Parton. So I'm that weird amalgamation. If you put Erik Estrada and Dolly Parton together, I'm that
you
weird.
You have a little Eddie Fiola in you too, though.
Dude, I could ride like him. Oh, I would give anything. Yeah, because that guy, I don't know how many times. That poor old VHS tape, which is the beginning intro of the rap movie, tail end. I would watch him do those moves over and over. No, You know, it's funny too, because I think maybe I was talking to Rob Pezza about, you know, my background, and like I've always been envious of guys who could grow a beard, because I told my dad, I said, hey man, I can't grow a beard. You know, this is it. This is like good 3 weeks worth of, you know, scruff. And we grew up in this generation of like 90210, you know, and so all the guys were, you know, they had the sideburns, were getting all the babes, and I couldn't do it. It was just this real wispy little Fu Man, you know, thing going on. And I finally had to grill my dad. I'm like, Dad, something's up. You know, tell me what's going on. Well, okay, yeah, we have native in our family. I was like, oh, it made perfect sense. Because I was like, I've never seen a black and white photo of a native with like much facial hair, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, that makes perfect. Yeah. So, that's part of the genetic makeup. But yeah, according to my dad, our last name is Spanish. And I believe I did some research on it at one time, that it was a derivative of a Roman centurion. I believe his name was Mooney. And to delineate each one of his sons, or the boys afterward, they just changed it to IZ, OZ, EZ, you know, kind almost in a way like this, like Slavic, where they'll, you know, like Lund, and then they'll have Lund's farmer, Lund's daughter, Lund's son, Eric's daughter, you know what I mean? So I think it was a delineation method somewhat similar to that. But yeah, that would be the origins of that. And I think also,
well,
yeah.
I love how you can touch back to your background and how you're inspired with the Native American artwork and all, and like the old Western stuff. I mean, it's a great thing to pull inspiration from. We've been out west, and I have family in Arizona, and I just love that kind of style. The colors that they use and the rocks, and you can get very deep and spiritual with how in touch with the earth they are. But it seems to me that you found some great inspiration.
Oh yeah, no, I truly have, you know, and even for as far as like their theological beliefs or anything, you know, or whatever of that nature, I found that in some instances it ties very closely to like pagan, you know, more of kind of earth based, you know.
Yeah.
And also looking into my mom's heritage too, and also that, you know, having some, not saying we specifically have Viking in the DNA, but having a, you know, them having a pagan kind of thing as well. I'm really fascinated with genetics in general. You know, because where I grew up, I was definitely one of the rare kids, you know, because I tan good, I tan well. But I was like, yeah, you blame Dad for that one. Yeah, you know, I've always been fascinated with it, and I don't know. There's just so much interesting things, you know, like with the Native culture, that I, you know, once I started to embrace more of that, or actually realize it was more of who I was, but never knew much about it. I just wanted to learn more and more and more, and also just, you know, meeting more people that were like true 100% Native, and there was like a familiarity that I had never, you know, had before. And I'm like, oh wow, these people seem, you know, they seem to think, you know, kind of like I do. You know, I mean, because I, you know, everybody has their own thoughts, but you don't really voice a lot of them,
right?
Or just their humor. You know, I'm like, oh, they have the same kind of quirky humor that I do. You know, but yeah, it's kind of, it's been a big inspiration. But I'm inspired by everything. You know, I get on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still hung up on breaking. I'm like, I need to go watch Electric Boogaloo and see Turbo right now. You can pull these like 80s references, and it's great. You are very diversified, and but I think we lost focus on one thing here, and that is for the RC people that have tuned in, they're maybe not familiar with what Headhunters does. As Peter scrolled around the Etsy page and your Facebook page, putting drivers' heads that don't look like normal drivers' heads. That's what this is coming down to. Different size, scale, but did I hear you slip up? Is this classified information here that you're starting to do more body now? Are we going that direction?
Oh no, definitely. You know, I mean, I've had requests for that for a long, long time. And I can tell you, partially the only thing that was holding me up with that was the kids were so little at the time, and they really required a tremendous amount of my energy. I mean, I was trying to, try to, but now they're so self-sufficient, and it frees me up a lot, so I can get back down to this, and also the fact that there's so much. I've had so much interest in what I was doing. Again, it goes back to the, me telling people I was going to get stuff going, and I didn't. So my deepest apologies to all of you.
But the hobby's evolved on you also. It's gone way more scale. I mean, the hobby has gone so scale.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you and I talked about it, back in the day. I was, I started out with like an AYK Gator, and there was no driver. I mean, you just painted the windows black. And if anybody remembers what those were, I mean, AYK is a long gone company. I wish they'd bring them back, because they really made some nice stuff. And I had the RC10. I still have several RC10. Hornets, like the Hornet, Grasshopper, they'd have those little drivers. And I just thought those were amazing. But then in the last few years, like you said, the scale stuff is just blowing up. I mean, even scale leaf spring, scale hubs, it's incredible. So I really think they need, drivers, and I'm happy to provide. So
yeah,
I got to do that,
I'm just thinking, even a half torso up.
Yeah.
I mean, in a few different positions, you could make some things available. Maybe a couple of different poses.
Yeah.
And then outfit them with your heads. They could be interchangeable. And now the Red Cat coming along with the lowrider stuff.
Yep.
I mean, there's that whole avenue to do.
Oh, yeah.
The hobby is here for you. I know you're going in multiple directions and all over the map, but there is no shortage for a need of what you're providing. That is for sure. And it works on, let me just throw out like the Rift, a rock bouncer, the Go Fast stuff. There's so many different platforms that your heads work on. There's a place in almost every truck for something that you do.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I know I've done a lot of, more quirky kind of, monster.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I don't get me wrong. I like a good old fashioned face and stuff, but I always like stuff that has a lot of expression to it. Even the art that I do, traditional art. I like stuff that's expressive. I mean, I'm not.
But that's where you take Peter's truck, for example, Mark, that green Toyota that you have, Peter. I mean, that was in the pages of Rccaraction. That was on a promo card for Ultimate Scale Truck Expo. It is one super scale, dope ass build. But to have that kind of expression put onto the face, it's exactly what you're talking about. You don't need an ultra realistic driver head, something, a little eccentric and
sure
off the wall a little. It works.
And to be honest, when I bought the head and I received it, I was very impressed with the level of detail, and that was even unpainted. I mean, I'm not the best painter at all. I mean, I had to send it to somebody to get painted, but just unpainted, I was impressed. I said, wow, this is going to look great. And it came out
a lot of
mint.
detail, lots and lots of detail.
Well,
it's my favorite driver.
Oh, dude, I that means a lot to me, man. It really, really does. I can't even begin to tell you, because again, like you were saying too about the Ghost Rider thing, that's always drove me nuts. I mean, even as a kid, you'd have your little car driving around, and I'm like, man, if they just had a a head in there. And we've always seen the same heads from all the companies, which are fine. I like them, but I have the ability to create some new ones. And I'm like, maybe, and I was just surprised that other people liked the ones that I was creating.
Yeah.
I honestly, I really was, because a friend of mine, he was the one who opened my eyes to it probably 10 years ago. And said, just make a different head. And the primary head, the one that's called Psycho Michael, that is literally a caricature of my father-in-law, and people absolutely love it.
Wow.
They just, and I had no idea. It's become so popular that my father-in-law always teases me about owing him royalties for it. And, and I'll hook him up one of these days. I will. But
there's so many, like the bull rope one. That was like one of my favorites. That bull face was cool.
Do you see that at all?
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
That is sick.
Yeah. Adam at Bull Rope.
Bull rope.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, hey man, he had a concept. And so I went and, redid his logo, drew a different logo up. And I said, let's do this as the concept design. And then we'll base the sculpture off of that. And that's the other thing too, is I really enjoy the conceptual side of it,
Right.
creating the artwork. I have like again, it goes right back to our past, when we had like Tony Hawk, we had all the big, Santa Cruz, we had Powell Peralta, we had, even like your off brands, like, you could get at Wally World or Target, like Veriflex. The skateboard art was so amazing. And that was the thing. Like, I wanted to see, like, I'm like, now that I can, I'm like, why don't I draw my heads in the same way?
Right.
Create logos, create graphics for them, something you put on skateboards or snowboards or surfboards. And, they're a little bit of a caricature sometimes, but also they have like an aggressive vibe to them, or just kind of give a vibe in general. I mean, I'd really
Seriously, you could put all of your artwork on t-shirts and sell them just the way they are. Those heads could be put on a shirt.
Well,
maybe some of the more name, like the ones that mean the most to you, maybe take 3 or 4 of the heads that have a backstory, but I think that artwork would look cool as hell on a shirt.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I mean, I think all of them, it's just fun to do them because I do logos and branding for companies sometimes. And I just like doing logos. I really like the psychology behind designs and that stuff, I think caters more toward illustrative stuff like car shows. And again, I love pretty much everything. It's almost my downfall. I look at car, like t-shirts that are done by for car shows or any kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, I would love to do that. And so next thing you know, my wife's like, dude, you're too diversified. Stop it. Quit building new skill sets. It's like, but I'm like, yeah, I just have to. I want to see if I can do it. And I'll do it pen and ink, the old traditional thing, and then I'll pull it into, the Photoshop or Illustrator, and then I'll do a super clean vector version or a raster version. But I also used to work for a sign shop, so I mean that kind of got a lot of. I've had so many different jobs; it's not even funny, but they all have a tendency to tie themselves together, but yeah, I think at one time I was going to do some hoodies with my Headhunter logo on them, and again,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I thought it'd be kind of cool if I did because I was like, I'd wear it,
Heck yeah.
But I have but I ended up dumping my energy and time into creating stuffs for hoodies for my other. Well, I've got like I said, I've got 5 different little companies, and none of them are like doing super well over any other.
Right.
But it's just this or that. But I had one called just Mooney's Designs, just my name. And I love fonts. I love lettering, because like there's so much that the psychology of people in general. There was one time when I was working at a sign shop, there was this trucker that came in, big burly dude. And this is a true story. And I was like, what do you want? I'm like, I'm thinking something really aggressive lettering. And he wanted Amazonian or Vivaldi, some really frilly thing, but he wanted it in hot pink. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, dude, whatever speaks to a person, you really can't profile somebody by just looking at them. You never know what's really gonna, trip their trigger. And fonts have so much power to them. Like with my Headhunters logo, I really liked the whole military stenciled kind of font, and then like a really clean, almost Paul Mitchell font for studios. I don't know. It all goes down to design, whether it's character. The drivers I do, like my zombie guy, there's a little bit of thought in the way the tongue went, which way it went, how far it hung out, what did it say to me? And funny enough, some of these designs really speak to people out there because they buy them,
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I just did it because I liked it. I didn't know anybody else would like it, So.
And that's what I love about how humble you are, and you have so much gratitude, and
I do.
You are so blown away how people it's almost it's surprising to you that we're so intrigued by this, and it's neat to see how humble you are, but we are blown away with your talent. Have you ever picked up a rattle can and kind of like old school graffiti, played with rattle cans and tag something before?
Well, like I was telling you, back when Breaking and Beat Street came out,
I was going down in my dad's basement and finding old rattle cans of paint, trying my hand at it. And
oh, I gotta tell you, this is a funny story. Speaking of rattle cannon, no, I mean, because I was doing like the funny lettering, because I mean, obviously, I grew up in Wyoming, South Dakota area, so we didn't have access to the major areas like New York or LA or anything like that. But the trains would occasionally come through and they'd have the graffiti on them. I was like, oh, that's cool. It was just like in the movies,
Yep.
It was like legit, like somebody from the streets did it. So of course, I'm going back and I find my mom's, and of course at the time she was decorating with pastel colors. So she had like country blue and pastel yellow. I'm like, just go with it. So I grab a can, shake it up. I go out to the shed and I try my hand, spray paint a few words like break in, and my notebooks would be full of all these lettering.
Yep.
But the funny story was my mom had I want to say it's a 1978 Datsun. And now we realize it would have been a really valuable car. But I went and did a big, stripe down the side of it. And it was my, yeah, in pastel yellow. And the car itself, yeah. And the car itself was like caramel. And it was oxidized caramel color with this pastel yellow stripe. And oh, it was so tacky. Actually, if you hold on 1 second, I got to show you these really quick. Like I said, I grew up around, mostly cowboys and stuff, but this was my car back in the day.
Was that a CRV?
It's a CRX.
CRX.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was affectionately known as the shopping cart because I didn't know. I saw that spoiler and I wanted it. And when I got it, I realized it was ridiculously high. So everybody was like, sweet shopping cart. That's amazing. And totally gutless. I was like Fast and Furious before Fast and Furious was cool.
Right.
And I mean, it was just the most gutless car. And I'd go fishing in it and people were like, how did you get on this mountain? I'm like, I'm that Honda right there, and like I'd see ladies on like a hover round or rascal, wheelchair, and they'd kind of eyeball me at the stoplight. Like, you want to go? I'm like, dude, don't. Come on. My girlfriend's with me. This thing's gutless. Don't. Come on. I don't want to race. But it looked cool. And I had an amazing sound system.
Yeah. What, bazooka tubes in the back or what?
Oh, no. I was pimped out. I had an 18-inch Rockford Foskey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I drove around with a screwdriver. My buddy was like, dude, you're going to have to drive with a screwdriver. And I didn't know why, but all that bass, because this was back when bass became a big deal.
Right.
And so everything was rattling as I'm driving. So I'm tightening things up. But, yeah, sure enough, just like he said. And, but I had like the amp and, the, like the tweeters and the mids.
Yep,
and
get your mids and tweeters, get the Alpine blasting.
Oh yeah.
That moment when your rear view mirror starts to rattle, like that's when you know you got the bass and you see the mirror. Boom.
Well, the funny thing is like about the time that I had that car, the song by Hadaway, "What Is Love," which later got made fun of pretty heavily by Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan. They were the two. Never grew out of the basement, Yep. And my buddies and I, we would bump that song. I mean, you could hear me coming from miles, and I was like, I can't believe that was our jam. I mean, I still love the song, but everybody gave us such a hard time. Like, yo, you're that clown that was pounding that song everywhere. Yep. But I had the bass for it. It had gorgeous bass. And I was like, this song rocks, But,
all about the bass back then. I had a Ford Escort GT, and my license plate said the number 2 noisy, Noizy, 2 noisy.
Really?
I was into the bass.
I had the custom plate too, and I had solo on my plate because at the time I was really into playing guitar solos. And everybody was like, is it because your car is so low to the ground? You have like the Star Wars,
Han thing. Yeah.
Han solo, you're always driving by yourself. You're going solo. I'm like, no.
Wow.
Yeah. It's because I like the solos on guitars, because I love the music of, like Motley Crue, Megadeth. I don't know if any of you guys remember, there's the neoclassical guy, Yngwie Malmsteen, and he could just rip arpeggios just up and down the neck of the guitar, and that was my goal at the time. But I was just like solo. I had to have solo on that thing, so my plate said solo, And my buddy actually, like you were saying with Too Noisy, he actually took a speak and spell and he tried all these different combinations and he found one that said XLR8 and he put that on his Daytona. So XLR8 was on his license plate.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, just with the speak and spell. He's like, dude, check these out. I'm like, yeah, it works.
That's
Wow, we
cool.
talked about Rubik's Cubes tonight. We talk about the movie Breaking, speaking spells now. We've
Yeah.
been all over the map. I love it.
Yeah, man.
Well, we went well over our time. I
Oh,
am
man.
going to officially tell you, Mark, we are bringing you back for the official Bigfoot and UFO special edition show one night. We will have a separate night for that. Clearly you are a man that we can sit and listen to for hours.
Oh,
But your time is valuable. I have COVID and I can't stay on my feet all night. So we do have to pull the plug at some point. I am going to be a jerk right now and I'm going to be that guy and I'm going to hold you to the 30% off rad promo code. I want to do it right now for the people that are watching, that are going to watch live tonight. What will we do? Let it run 6 hours or so, something like that?
no, you know what? I'll try to do it for say like a week.
Wow.
Yeah, man, it's not that big. It's not that big of a deal. I mean,
if you can run it, all caps, rad RC, something that we can agree upon, then this way Peter can, well, he's not going to post it anywhere special. They have to watch a show to get it. We'll say rad RC will be the promo code. I thank you. I'm going to go place an order. I saw a couple of them as Peter was flipping through Etsy here. I'm excited. I can't wait till you do something for the SCX6. I know I need to get ahead for a couple of micros now. Are the micro ones available? That is the question.
Yeah, you know, they sell out pretty quick. I'll tell you what I've got here. Like the girl driver, that one, I got to get that one molded and actually have to finish sculpting up the hair. And I'm going to do some different variations for the hair. Right now.
Trim up Ashley's beard and we can get that one on.
Yeah, hold on once. If you can hold on 2 seconds before we.
Yep, no problem.
I have the Dastardly Dan already available.
Nice.
And that, like, they sell out super fast. Just give me 2 seconds.
I'm sure he probably can't make them fast enough sometimes. Yeah. Like you gotta go print them and sanding them and.
Yeah. And luckily that's where my little minions come in.
So how many resin printers do you have over there? Is it?
Well, I have 2 resin printers, and that's usually I just use those for prototypes. I don't use those to do production models. I mean, I go and do a prototype, and then I make a mold because I can cast these faster than. See, like this is a Bayou Billy.
Yep.
1/24. I've got a can't even remember what I call this guy. I got him 1/24. Let's see. I've also got Deadbolt Dean 1/24.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, and honestly, I prefer, you know, like this resin.
Yep.
Versus like the UV Cure 3D resin. Like this will go into a production mold because I can produce them far faster.
That's solid all the way through then? Is that a solid piece of resin or is there hollow at all?
Yeah, no, this one's solid.
It's solid. Okay.
Yeah. Because that, you know, they're that small, it's really not that big of a deal. If they're bigger, then yeah, it's ideal if they're hollow.
Okay.
But one thing about this resin, I mean, and I think this kind of ties back into here. Let me grab one of these guys really quick. This ties into my preference in driving too, and pardon my nasty nails. Let's see here. Like this resin right here is really brittle in contrast to your good old school 2-part resin. And since I am kind of inclined to be trigger happy on my remote, I want that thing to survive, you know?
You're speaking my language. I close my eyes and squeeze the trigger.
Yeah. I need to start to send it, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And you know, and then put some cool, my son's always picking out the music for it. He's like, yeah, Dad, that's perfect, you know? But I mean, I don't know. The other thing too is like 3D printing. I love them because you can kind of tweak dimensions and stuff like that. They're great for prototyping, and maybe that's just, you know, my age talking, where I really like the regular stuff, you know, done in resin. you know, I can tint it whatever color I want, but they're just solid. They're substantial. Like, you know, this guy right here,
Yep.
you can, it's like a golf ball, man. I mean,
Yeah.
these things dropped out of my hands and they bounce around, and like sometimes with the 3D resin, it can be somewhat brittle.
Yes.
And I don't know. I have a tendency to lean toward, I mean, since I work at a foundry, I can have these cast in bronze. I mean, if anyone wants a solid head in bronze, just let me know. We can gear shift that baby all night long. I mean, that'd be epic as a gear shifter or valve stem cover or something, or a keychain or a necklace if you're, you know, wanting to head the, you know, the shore and wanting to sport your, you know, necklace. So
I love it. Oh my gosh. You will do anything. You'll chase that buck. Please hit up Mark.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of who I am, man. I mean, once I like I said, I love to create, and then when I found out people actually like to buy the stuff I create, I'm like, oh, well, I'll be darned. You know, so might as well, you know, not gonna live forever.
Well, I have a sense that this is going to be a new year for you. I think things are really shaping up. I know CowRc and a few others have been talking very highly of you and have some things in the pipeline with some projects going on. We won't blow off all the secrets right now, but I know it's a good year for you, and I'm very excited for your success, Mark, and wish nothing but great things for you. I can't thank you enough. I know we will continue to keep in touch. We have more than enough things in common to talk about all the time. So you are a neat man, Mark. You are a good guy. I thank you personally for coming on. Peter, I'll let you wrap it up with him. And Mark, I'll be in touch.
Thanks, Mike. You take care of yourself, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Mike. And Mark, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. It was good to take a deep dive. Fabulous products. Definitely be. I like that term Ghost Rider, because ever since I met Mike, I think 98% of my trucks have driver, except for 3 that I'm looking at.
Right.
So I think I need to add some. But real quick before we close out, Mike was talking about how Axial made the jump of putting drivers in their 24, and Mike was talking about the guy with the cowboy hat. It's kind of like their signature. So when I first got this, you know, I was like, wow, man, it started with the Gladiator, and now you got the little dude in there. So it's actually, you know, Mike and I say this is the year of the 24. So it's good that you're producing those heads, because we're coming into 24 season, we like to call it, right? It's getting cold on the East Coast, and these guys come out, and it'll be a great opportunity for you to snatch that market up. So yeah, definitely everybody that watched the show, Rccaraction show, promo code should be active, Mark, by tomorrow morning, about a week. And thanks for coming on the show, and keep grinding and doing what you're doing, man. Great products. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And I'm humbled by the opportunity that you guys wanted to listen to me. So you guys keep doing it. We'll talk
Great,
about aliens next time.
Absolutely. Love it.
All right, Mark, take care. And everybody, before we close out, you know, next week we got a great guest coming up in the works. You know, Mike and I are talking about the man himself behind Mr. Rebel. You know, so we're going to try to make that work. So everybody watching, you know, look for the post next week. We're going to
next week we'll get Jeff on here. We talked a little long tonight, but Pete, I think you got the gist of this man. Mark is special. That's one hell of a great promo code to share tonight with the Rad Show. Solid dude. Big things coming from him.
That was a nice promo code, and you know,
and I love
this day. I mean,
his background and the way he connects. I mean, we talked about BMX bikes, and just from that 80s era, you know, he gets G.I. Joe. He understands Transformers, and he speaks our language. It's big shout out, Robert Pezza, CowRc, for your recommendation. You were spot on, Robert. He was the man for the show tonight. That was a great show. And I can't thank Mark enough for that. And I love how humble he is and gracious. And surprised that he is, that we're so fascinated by it. But Pete, when you look at the level of detail, it's so cool. And then when you
Yeah,
can
I mean,
spin
I look,
off
I
and
still
get an
look at
actually had,
this.
believe me, I think I need some like devil horns coming off of me. If you put devil horns coming up off of my head and my goatee, I'm gonna have them sculpt my ugly mug. Devil Mike,
That'd be a nice,
the devil
nice
dog.
driver head, but still to this day, you know, this green TF2 with his driver head is still my favorite. I mean, when
Seriously,
you get up close and look at the detail of the face,
yeah,
it's really something special.
And
And you know, it's a good product. I like it. I mean,
really is. It was neat to
definitely
see
worth
them
checking out.
at the Fairway Crawl. 2 weeks ago when we were at the Fairway Crawl, all the donations that New Jersey Scale got. Oh, here's one of them. When I went up to the prize table to pick out my the prizes, I got this sweet little cup
Nice.
with their logo on it. But they also had Headhunter stuff. I grabbed, a couple of Headhunter, like you're rooting through the table. And I mean, they had great stuff, great donations from all the sponsors. But when I saw the Headhunter stuff, I'm like, heck yeah, boom. Always excited to get another head for a driver. Even if you don't have the build right now, it's worth just setting aside, take around with the paint and have it ready for the next build. Good stuff, Pete. Good stuff. Great show. It's been a long week. It was great to have you back here this week, Peter. Next Saturday, when we're on with Jeff, maybe we'll have a chance to talk about the TRX 4M. I really want to get into the details on this. I've kind of a whole show. I want to put 10-15 minutes away to kind of break down this debacle of why Traxxas went 18th and not 24th. And I'm telling you, it will all make sense. I can spell it out to you and convince everyone why they went 18th. I know it pissed a lot of people off that they didn't go 24th, that now there's going to have to be a whole other classification and a division just for this truck. But Traxxas is bringing a performance-based micro truck. The way they got this the shocks tuned, the steering radius, going to an 18th scale allowed them to put the performance into the design and make a performance-based micro. I think it's going to drive like no other micro you've ever driven before. But we can get into that and all the details. I'll send you the photos and all the write-ups that I have on it, and you can share it on your screen. Next week, we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. Hopefully then by next week, we'll, like you said, Jeff, maybe there was one other thing. Oh, I know what it was. It's still related to Jeff. I had it here. When he's on next week, we can get into the brass stuff that he dropped for the Rebel. That's the other piece I was holding on to. This week, all of the brass parts are now available on the Rebel site for the RebelCon. So if you want to wait, the brass parts are there. We are going to get these installed onto Dreamer's RebelCon. Since we put the aluminum stuff on mine, we're going to go brass on his. Hopefully have a contrast, a difference with the weight versus the aluminum. But that's pretty much about it for me, Pete. Anything else new, hot, exciting on your end?
Yeah, no, just building. You know, still got a lot of stuff going on. You know, with the, before we go, you could hear me, right?
Yep.
All right. Cole picked up on us matching. He called us twins. So yeah, we did that on purpose. And we had Scale Audio Solutions, RC Prorack. So thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, just gonna try to get some builds done this weekend. Hopefully find some downtime. And about it, man. So look forward to chatting with you over the weekend. And I'll see you guys next week, man. Looking forward to seeing Jeff again, chatting with him, exploring the new products. I know he's got a lot going on. So You guys be well, and we'll chat next week. Take care.